A young deer is hanging awkwardly against a fence with one of its hind legs tightly caught in a loop of steel wire. Every time it struggles, the wire digs deeper into its fur and pulls its body closer to the ground. A man slowly approaches the animal, holding a pair of metal-cutting pliers. The deer immediately kicks hard, twists its body, and tries to pull its leg away from the approaching hand. It does not know whether this person is a rescuer, a passerby, or the final threat of that day. From the deer's perspective, all three possibilities probably look almost identical. The man stops, lowers his body, and lets the animal see the pliers in his hand. When the pliers touch the section of wire tightening around its leg, the deer suddenly stops kicking. For a few seconds, it lies completely still. Then it slowly turns the trapped part of its leg toward the tool. That behavior looks like deliberate cooperation, but it could also simply be a body exhausted after hours of resistance. So did the deer understand that the stranger was trying to free it, or did it simply no longer have the strength to run? This is the issue that makes animal rescue videos moving, but also easy to misunderstand. An animal standing still is not necessarily trusting the person touching it. Sometimes, that silence is a sign that fear has reached its highest level. To know whether animals recognize help, we have to look beyond a single moment of stillness. We have to see what the animal observes, how its behavior changes, and whether it actively helps the rescuer complete the task. The answer is not simply yes or no. It is more like a ladder, beginning with survival reflexes and ending with behaviors that come astonishingly close to trust. And the first rung of that ladder is the very behavior humans misunderstand most often. When captured, trapped, or restrained, a wild animal may enter a freeze state. Its body is still flooded with stress hormones, even though there is almost no visible movement. Its heart rate may rise sharply while its muscles become rigid or suddenly lose tone. Wide-open eyes, shallow breathing, and a motionless body can make the rescuer think the animal has calmed down. In reality, its nervous system may be operating as though a predator has its neck firmly in its jaws. This response is sometimes called fear-induced immobility or tonic immobility. It is an ancient survival mechanism that appears when neither fighting nor fleeing is possible. With some predators, prey that stops moving may reduce the stimulus to attack or create an opportunity to escape later. To rescuers, however, that state can easily look like consent. The animal is not resisting, but that does not mean it understands what the scissors, pliers, or hands are doing. It may simply be waiting for the final moment before making a desperate escape. If nature had a rescue consent form, immobility certainly would not count as a signature. Wildlife rehabilitators have to learn how to distinguish a freeze state from genuine relaxation. An animal beginning to relax usually breathes more slowly, has less muscle tension, and no longer constantly searches for an escape route. It may deliberately adjust its posture instead of simply lying limp or rigid. It may also track the hand, the tool, or the body part being treated. Those small changes matter far more than the animal simply not moving. They show that the brain is still gathering information and updating the level of danger in the situation. However, even a calmer state does not prove that the animal understands it is being rescued. It may only have realized that the person in front of it has not caused any additional pain. This is the first level of reading human behavior. The animal does not yet need to trust you. It only needs to decide that you are not an immediate threat. Wild animals make that decision through small signals that humans often overlook. Body orientation, approach speed, and distance can completely change how an animal perceives us. A person walking directly toward an animal, staring at it, and quickly raising a hand may unintentionally imitate a predator's behavior. A person who lowers their body, moves slowly, and leaves an escape route open creates a less threatening image. This does not turn that person into the animal's friend. It only reduces the chance of being placed in the category of giant thing trying to eat me. For many species, that is already a significant upgrade in a human's profile. Birds living in cities often learn that some people can pass by without posing a danger. Deer in parks may also reduce their flight distance after repeatedly encountering people who do not attack them. But becoming accustomed to the presence of humans is called habituation, not trust. An animal accustomed to seeing people may still run away when someone changes direction, looks directly at it, or approaches too quickly. It has learned a specific pattern, not a principle that humans in general are safe. This is why a deer standing near tourists may still panic when someone reaches out to touch it. An accepted distance is not an invitation for contact. An animal may allow you to exist in the same space while having absolutely no desire for you to take another step closer. So what sign is stronger than simply not running away? We have to wait until the animal begins tracking the rescuer's actions and changing its behavior in response. At that point, the story is no longer only about tolerance. It begins to resemble a form of coordination. A sea turtle entangled in fishing line usually does not understand what pliers are, but it can recognize what happens each time the pliers touch the exact line tightening around its flipper. The pressure decreases, the pain changes, and moving its body suddenly becomes a little easier. If the animal only lies still, we still do not know whether it is cooperating or merely enduring. But if it repeatedly turns the trapped part of its body toward the tool, the evidence begins to become more interesting. That behavior suggests that it is not merely reacting to the presence of a human. It is tracking the connection between the rescuer's actions and the problem on its body. A bird with plastic cord wrapped around its leg may jerk violently when the first hand approaches. But after the cord has been loosened a few times, it may stop pulling its leg away. Instead, it holds its leg in a position that makes it easier for the rescuer to continue working. This does not necessarily mean the bird is thinking in a complete sentence. It does not need to tell itself that the other person has good intentions and that the scissors will finish the job in another 30 seconds. It only needs to recognize a simple rule. When the hand touches the cord, the pressure decreases. When it stops struggling, the process happens faster. That may be a form of learning in the moment, but it may also be a basic level of understanding the goal. The animal recognizes that the rescuer is acting on the exact thing causing the problem. This difference is very difficult to measure from a short video alone. A single movement may be random. An animal in pain may also change position simply to avoid pressure. But when it repeats the same adjustment after each action by the rescuer, the likelihood of coincidence decreases. At that point, the animal no longer resembles a passive object in the rescue. It begins to become a participant. A seal with a plastic ring tightening around its neck may try to bite anything that comes near. That response is entirely reasonable for an animal that has never scheduled an appointment at a rescue center. But when the tool touches the ring and the pressure decreases, its behavior may change. It remains alert. It remains ready to resist. But it may stop attacking during the exact moments when the rescuer is working on the object tightening around its neck. This is not complete trust. It may only be a temporary agreement between two species that do not speak the same language. You are not hurting me any further. I will try not to bite you for the next few seconds. In the wild, a few seconds like that can be enough to save a life. However, coordination after a human has already approached is still not the strongest evidence. The animal may only be adjusting its behavior after noticing that the pain is decreasing. The harder case to explain occurs when it seeks out a human first. For an injured wild animal, approaching a large, unfamiliar creature is a highly risky decision. Instinct usually tells it to do the opposite: run away, hide, or fight back before the other party gets close enough. An injured animal is even more vulnerable to becoming prey. Therefore, voluntarily closing the distance with a human is not a casual choice. It only makes sense if the current danger has become greater than its fear of humans, or if the animal has learned that humans can sometimes solve problems it cannot solve on its own. Underwater, a dolphin with fishing line wrapped around its fin cannot use its teeth to reach every part of its body. Each time it swims, the line pulls tight and restricts its movement. It may try rubbing against rocks. It may twist its body. It may jerk violently until it is exhausted. But those solutions sometimes only make the line cut deeper. Then it sees a diver, a slow, clumsy creature underwater, but one with two hands and sharp tools. From the dolphin's perspective, this may be a rather poor body design, but at the right moment it becomes extremely useful. If the dolphin swims directly toward the diver, slows down, and places the entangled part of its body near the diver's hands, that behavior is noteworthy. It suggests that the animal has not merely detected a human. It has chosen the human from among many other things in the environment. When the diver begins removing the line, the dolphin may rotate its body to make the trapped area easier to reach. It may surface for air and then return to the exact same position. It may remain just close enough for the process to continue while still preserving its ability to leave. Each return weakens the hypothesis of a random approach. The animal appears to be maintaining a sequence of interactions aimed at a specific outcome. The problem is that we still cannot look directly into its thoughts. It may understand that the diver is rescuing it. It may also only understand that the other hand is reducing the uncomfortable pulling force. Those two explanations are not the same, but both are more complex than a simple mechanical reflex. They require the animal to track the actions, results, and position of another individual. They also require it to temporarily suppress the flight response that helped its ancestors survive for millions of years. A wild animal does not need to understand the rescuer's profession to recognize that the person's actions are helpful. It only needs to update its prediction. This human has not caused pain. Their movements are making the line looser. Staying a few more seconds may be better than fleeing. This is a rapid, wordless, and risky calculation. Many social species make similar calculations with members of their own kind every day. They have to decide who is approaching to attack, who wants to cooperate, and who is holding an important resource. That ability to read signals can be applied to humans when the situation demands it. A dolphin does not need to have evolved specifically to understand divers. It may simply be using its existing social toolkit on a creature with a very unusual shape. But actively seeking out a human still does not mean trusting humans in general. The animal may view one individual as useful in one specific situation. After being freed, it may still avoid everyone else. That is not a contradiction. It is an intelligent response. It has learned about a specific action, not signed a peace treaty with the entire human species. And to know whether that experience lasts beyond the moment of rescue, we need to look for another sign. Does the animal remember exactly who did what to it? At this point, crows provide an answer that makes humans slightly uncomfortable. Because crows do not merely see us. They can keep records. In a famous experiment, researchers wore a specific mask while capturing and banding wild crows. Years later, the crows still reacted aggressively to that same face. The clothing could change, but the dangerous mask was still recognized. This shows that crows do not merely remember a bad experience. They associate that experience with a specific individual. More remarkably, crows that had never been captured also learned to be wary after observing the flock's reaction. Information about a dangerous human spread through their social network. Crows do not need to know your name to make a note that you should be avoided. And if crows can keep records of threats, the next question is whether they do the same with helpful people. Stories about crows bringing shiny objects to people who regularly feed them are very appealing. But science cannot yet call those objects expressions of gratitude. They may be exchanges, curiosity, or simply a habit of placing objects in a familiar location. The evidence for remembering danger is currently much stronger than the evidence for gratitude. This makes perfect evolutionary sense. Forgetting a kind face may cost you a meal. Forgetting a dangerous face may cost you your life. But some animals do more than remember people who once treated them personally. In experiments with capuchin monkeys, the animals were allowed to observe two people interacting with each other. One person tried to help open a container, while the other repeatedly refused to cooperate. Afterward, both offered food to the monkey. The monkeys often avoided taking food from the person who had behaved uncooperatively. They had not been treated badly themselves. They simply observed and then adjusted their choices. That is evidence of social evaluation, but not necessarily moral judgment. The monkey may not think the other person is bad. It may only conclude that this is an unreliable partner. That difference is very important. Recognizing a beneficial outcome is not the same as understanding the good intention behind that outcome. A falling branch might accidentally break the cord holding an animal. A rescuer might also deliberately cut that same cord. The result is the same, but the intention is completely different. To prove that an animal understands help in the deepest sense, we would have to know whether it can distinguish between these two cases. At present, the strongest evidence suggests that many species can understand the immediate goal of an action. They can recognize that someone is acting on the object causing pain or opening an escape route. But understanding an abstract moral intention remains much harder to prove. Fortunately, an animal does not need to study philosophy to cooperate during a rescue. It only needs to recognize that the action in front of it is improving its condition. Then there are moments that make even the most cautious explanation difficult to maintain calmly. A whale entangled in rope around its mouth and fins may remain almost completely still while divers cut through each section of rope. A single powerful movement from it could place the entire rescue team in danger. When the final piece of rope falls away, the whale could disappear immediately. But in some cases, it returns, swims in circles, or approaches each rescuer. That behavior may be curiosity, reorientation, or a response to the sudden disappearance of pressure. It may also show that the animal has registered the individuals who were just involved in freeing it. What we cannot do is jump directly from that approach to the conclusion that it is saying thank you. We can describe the behavior. We can measure distance, time, and direction of approach. But the animal's inner subjective experience remains beyond direct observation. Even so, that behavior is not meaningless. It shows that the rescue changed how the animal responded to the people present. And this is where the story turns toward an unexpected paradox. Rescuers want the animal to be calm enough to receive treatment, but they do not want it to learn that all humans are safe. An animal that becomes too accustomed to people may approach roads, residential areas, or people who have no intention of helping. For that reason, rehabilitation centers often reduce contact, cover their faces, limit speaking, and feed animals from behind barriers. The goal is to heal the body without erasing the caution necessary for survival in the wild. In wildlife rescue, a perfect goodbye is often the animal running away without even looking back. Returning to the deer by the fence, the final wire is cut. It steps backward, stands unsteadily for a moment, and then looks at the person who freed it. Then it turns and runs straight into the forest. It does not touch the rescuer. It does not stay to create a perfect moment for the camera. But that does not mean it learned nothing. It may have recognized that this person did not attack, that the pliers reduced the pain, and that the approach opened an escape route. That may not be gratitude. But it is no longer a completely blind reflex either. Perhaps animals do not need a word for kindness to recognize when kindness is happening. And sometimes, the most appropriate way for a wild animal to say thank you is simply to keep fearing us.